and she lost $100,000 and a 100% return on the money. I will change the names in this video to protect the innocent. So let me see if I changed his and her name. His name is Amber, and her name is John. Yeah, I totally changed their names. None of my friends will ever be able to figure out who I'm talking about if you're in my circle of friends. But Amber and John, John and Amber, lost $100,000. A return of 100% on the money. And I want to record this for a shorter video because they will never watch a long video like this. Howdy, welcome back to Dion Talk. In this video, I'm going to talk about how my two friends lost $100,000, basically 100% return on their money. And to protect the names of the innocent, I'm going to change their names completely so none of my friends will be able to guess who they were. His name is Amber, her name is John, so no one will ever guess who I'm talking about. But I'm going to talk about in this video, specifically, not a hypothetical, but an actual example of how watching Crash Bro videos and listening to people who believed them cost my friends $100,000, a 100% return on their money. I believe if John or Amber ever watch this, buckle up. You're not going to like me after the end of this. They're actually good friends of mine. I love both of them. I wish them the best. And I made a version of this video a while ago and was a little too specific in the Crash Bros that I named, and they threatened to sue me, so I took it down. So I'm making that video again so that people can learn from my friends' mistakes. In 2021, John and Amber reached out to me. And they said, now they're doing pretty well, right? He has a really good job. She runs her own business and is doing really well. Both doing really well. Successful people. Working probably decades longer than they need to because of not investing in real estate or putting their money to work, right? They both work hard, earn good money, but they don't have their money earning money for them. And they realized around 2021, a year before I retired, that I was putting my money to work and people could see a change in me. So they reached out to me and they said, hey, why don't you come over and give us some advice on this real estate investing thing? Now, at the time, I was making an offer on a real estate investment in a town called, no kidding, McKenna, Washington, that has a population of less than 600. And now it has a population of like 450. So population isn't always the only thing we look for. There are several economic drivers, commuting distance to several larger cities, one of the largest bases on the West Coast. So it's an investment that makes sense in a lot of ways. When I was going to purchase the property, there was one for sale across the street. Identical. Both duplexes, side-by-side units, was listed for 400,000. Both of them were listed for 400,000. These were found right on the MLS. Current rents probably didn't make it seem like a good deal, but I used the binder strategy that gets my tenants to ask me to raise the rent. And based on the numbers of what I knew my rents would go to, it's going to get a little better than a 10% return, which ultimately it did. It was about 11% the first year. And it's really close to 25% now where you're three owning this place. Real estate doesn't suck when you add time and a lot of education to make the right decisions. So I go to meet with my friends and they're uncertain. I think they had owned one rental in the past and it didn't go very well. It was a tenant, it was a property that had a high turnover. For whatever reason, really high turnover. So they kind of had a bad taste in their mouth about rentals. So I'm at their house and I'm talking about this deal that I'm buying. And make sure my phone is on silent because I want to be able to see the chat so I can respond. I said there was a duplex for sale that I'm buying, one right across the street from. I've ran the numbers. I've got at this time a decade worth of experience, several performing rentals within 10 miles of this one. This one checks off all my boxes. It's side by side, garages in the middle, no shared living space, uh, pet friendly fenced yards, washer dryer hookups in each unit, better than a 10% cash on cash return with conservative numbers. So my friends have the money. In 2021, they had the money to make the down payment. We were talking about it. When they invited me over for dinner, we also have a friend who has 30 rentals and has been retired. He retired at 55, a couple of years before I did in 2022. He was already retired on his rentals. Somehow they got wind that I was coming over to give rental advice to John and Amber, and they these other friends had been watching a lot of the Doom channels, a lot of the Crash Bros videos, and what was happening in 2021. So in 2020, we had a pandemic, an eviction moratorium, a rent freeze, and a lot of people went on forbearance because you can go on forbearance even if you were still working and had zero issues. You could just say the magic C word and not pay your mortgage for a year. So people went on forbearance. And in 2021, a lot of the Crash Bros were saying, first they called a crash in 2020. There were no indicators for one. Then they called a crash in 2021, and they were saying at the time, forbearance is going to end, and people that come off of forbearance go into foreclosure. So there's going to be a massive crash, wait a year or two, and buy properties 5 cents on the dollar, 10 cents on the dollar, expecting the biggest real estate crash in the history, worse than 2008, even though we had zero indicators that that was going to happen. Because everybody was working. They were getting stimulus, unemployment, extra unemployment. Wages were going up. Yes, inflation was starting to kick in. Interest rates 2020 to 2021 were in the 3% range. This was a small multifamily, so there was about a 0.5% increase on the mortgage, and it was not house hacked, so it was about another 0.5% increase. So I got this for just under a 4% interest rate on the mortgage. So here are the numbers and how my friends lost the money. I make the offer, it gets accepted. I was set up to buy a duplex. I wasn't in a position to buy both of them. I told my friend, you should. Here's the numbers, broke it all down. I said, you're going to get about a 10% return. It's a $400,000 investment. You need to put down 25%. That's $100,000. They had the money. I had the money. So I bought my duplex. They didn't because they listened to our friends who were watching all the Crash Bros videos and they were expecting forbearance to kick in and a big, massive crash to happen, which still hasn't. So every year, every 2 weeks since like 2015, there's been a new reason for the real estate crash to be right around the corner, and none of the indicators are there for it. I put $100,000 down. Yeah, I went under contract at 400,000. I made MLS list price offer. I'm not like Michael Zuber. I don't have to get all my deals below list price. List price meant nothing to me. It got the cash on cash return I wanted at list price. Once we were under contract, I did negotiate it down to another $2,500 because I'm not gonna at least put in the effort. So at $400,000, basically $100,000 invested into this property. It's 25% down. There were some closing costs, right? Appraisal, inspection, title, right? A couple $1,000, but I had negotiated it down too. So we'll just round it off to $100,000 invested. Now that first year, I was making just under $500 a unit. So basically about $1,000 a month in cash flow. So cash flow means, for all the people who attack me in the comments in Futureland, I pay the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. I set aside money for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. What is left was a little over, well, I think it was right around $500 a door. So about $1,000 a month, made $12,000 that first year, invested $100,000 to get it. So it was a little bit above a 10% cash on cash return. Gets even better if you realize you don't pay a mortgage for a month after you close. So you get a free month, and there was already tenants in place. So I collected rent before I started paying the mortgage. So return's actually better than that, but it's a 10% return. Then I did the binder strategy. Rents now, I'm making about $1,000 a unit 3 years later. Rent spiked up a bunch. Tenants asked for the increase. I did have one tenant turnover, which made it a little easier to get a higher rent on that side. So I'm now making $2,000 a month, $100,000 invested. So $24,000 a year in profit, 24% return, kind of easy math to do. But that's not where the $100,000 loss is. I'm not even counting the rent. I paid $400,000. And when I go on Redfin, Zillow, Realtor.com, the Zestimate, the estimated value currently in 2024, so 3 years after closing on the property, They say it's around 615, 617, 605. So all of my sources online without getting an appraisal done say it's above 600,000. So I'm going to estimate those high and say 580. And if I sold it, I would have to pay agent fees, probably maybe do some repairs if there's some concessions that the buyers ask for. I invested $100,000 at 400. It's now worth far above 500, even after agent fees, capital gains tax, concessions. I would profit. I would get my 100,000 back, and I would make another $100,000. I would have doubled my money if I sold the property now. The one across the street was for sale for the exact same amount in the exact same market with the exact same layout. They could have bought it. But the Crash Bros have a really good, sound philosophy. What the Crash Bros do is they go by this philosophy. If you want to help yourself, tell people what they want to hear. And people want to hear about a crash. If you want to help people, tell them the truth. And what I told my friends was this is a solid deal. It's in a good area. There's tons of economic drivers. We're within commuting distance up. We're literally on the best side of the base for all the people who don't want to live in Lakewood on the other side. The bigger city is. The rents are going up. The forbearance is not going to impact. And even if they did, forbearance ends and starts foreclosures that take up to 1,000 days. So we'd be looking at, they wouldn't even be hitting yet 3 years later. And John and Amber still don't own a rental. And I feel like I failed my friends because I didn't have the ability to convince them that they should put their money to work on a deal that is a good deal. How much have the Crash Bros cost you? How many opportunities since 2020 have you had to put money to work? But there's been a video that comes out that says 40% real estate crash coming in 2 months, when the largest, no kidding, largest real estate crash we have experienced as a nation in any 12-month period is 8.9%. Yes, over 5 years, some markets can crash a lot, or some local markets can crash. But market wide, that's the biggest crash we've ever experienced in a 1 year period. So when you see a Crash Bro video coming out right now, today in 2024, saying supply is above where it was in 2019, there has to be a crash coming. You're going to see, I guarantee you're going to see a dozen videos, thousands of videos, but a dozen from the Crash Bros coming out in the next few weeks saying inventory of houses for sale is above 2019. The crash is right around the corner. Sounds completely logical. And when you hear it like that, and you hear it with the tone and the pretty charts that they're going to use, you're going to fall for it. And you're going to think, well, I should just wait and buy, right? Let's rewind to 2019 when inventory was about where it is now. 5 years later, where's the freaking crash? High inventory isn't going to cause a crash. Houses sitting on the market a long time, motivated sellers, you have to have forced sellers for there to be a crash. And when people say prices are coming down, no. Prices are up 5%, 4.7% market wide in the United States, 9.7% in my state of Washington. There is no R. I almost wanted to title my video today, How I Got the 2024 Market Wrong. And that's because I called for a 10% increase market wide. It's only 5. My state's almost 10, but it's almost 5 market wide for 2024. That isn't a crash. And people listing houses and then reducing the price isn't a price cut. It's a wish list price that they didn't sell for. They bring it down. It's still selling for more than what it did last year. I apologize to my friend John and Amber, and I wish I was better at convincing them to take action because I feel like it's my fault. I cost them $100,000 in just appreciation, not to mention the 12, now $24,000 a year that I'm making in pure profit after paying all expenses and setting aside money for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So if my friends end up working longer than necessary, I'm going to feel like it was my fault. I'm going to put that video out as a standalone because I don't think my friends or any of my friends that would watch my content will click on a 2-hour video. And I want people to send that to them so that they understand what actually happened and how I do feel responsible for not being better at saying, here's all the data that says there's not going to be a crash, right? People are saying forbearance is going to end. Okay, great. People have equity. So even if forbearance ended in 2021, there wouldn't be foreclosures. There would be sales because people had equity. And sales don't cause prices to come down because there's enough demand. And interest rates were so low that prices since 2021 have continued to go up. Even from last year to this one, when there's still crash bro predictions going on, we're up nationwide over 4%. I forget the exact data, or I would say it's like 4.7. And yes, Washington is almost 10%. Don't let the crash bros cost you money. The purpose of this video, the rest of this video, is going to be to answer your questions. Tonight, there's a course video at 6 o'clock, so this can only go a maximum of like hour and 45 minutes. Or if the questions run out, it might end sooner. And this is open questions. You can ask anything. It would be great if it was real estate related, financial freedom related, retiring early related. I give horrible parenting advice, terrible relationship advice, but all questions are welcome, even the rude ones. Old guy REI, howdy. Good to see you here in the chat. Steve's, what up? Jason, Luke, Adam, howdy. Happy almost Thanksgiving. Yes, that's a holiday we can still call. I say happy Merry Christmas. I still say Merry Christmas. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you how you can use one sentence to upset people on the left and the right. One sentence, get both sides. Wait for Hyder. Yep, can't start yet. Adam, Jason, Delbert, howdy. What about Pullman to invest in? A college town in Eastern Washington. So I don't see a reason not to invest there. It is in Washington, so hopefully you understand the politics of this state. How does the deal look? It's not my market, so I can't say yes or no. But the first thing is, do you have trusted boots on the ground there? Somebody who can tell you the neighborhoods to avoid, the areas to invest in, what strategy is working? Are you friends with other investors in the area? The first thing with any market is, what's your advantage there? Or will you take the time to develop that advantage there? Then, does your strategy match the property that you're finding? Rent by the room for a college, long-term, mid-term, short-term, like all the different options that you have there. Somebody is investing there successfully. How do you find out which strategy is working best? And then how do you emulate it? So I don't have any reason not to invest in Pullman. It's not like, as far as I know, and verify before I started spending money there, though. It's not like Seattle or King County or the city of Tacoma or city of Wenatchee, right? Where the landlord laws are so negative, I wouldn't want to own there. But it is in a blue state, which is where I prefer to invest. I like the higher cost of living areas, so I have more cash flow with fewer rentals, right? There are people who buy a duplex and they go, how do you get $1,000 a unit? Well, it's a $400,000 freaking duplex that appreciated 50% in 4 years. That's where cash flow comes from. It doesn't come from investing in smaller, or what do you call it, lower cost of living areas where it's easier to buy rentals. You can get the same cash flow there. It just takes more deals, probably even less money invested, right? To get the more deals, but it's more purchases, more tenants, more risk. BuzzTune, Michelle, howdy. Jay, old guy right, so mysterious. No, I was very exact. It's so weird that their names, no one will ever guess that her name is John and his name is Amber. It would just never come together. Jay, Anna, howdy. Let me know how it goes, Anna, now that you have made that recent change. Rehab, North Carolina houses, howdy. Luke, when a seller hears along the line of, yeah, you won't have to pay an agent or closing costs if you sell to me, does the agent represent both sides? I think I saw this question the other day and I took a screenshot because I was going to, at some point, make a video on it. But I wanted more definition on the question. So if you buy through me, you don't have to seller hears, you won't have to pay an agent's or closing if you sell to me. So is that somebody wanting to use a lawyer? How much will that lawyer cost? Right? Or what way are they wanting to buy it? Maybe they're an agent that wants to make the purchase and they're going to handle the transaction. Uh, it's an inch. It's I remember seeing this the other day and I couldn't quite understand, I guess, the context of the question. So a seller here, so you're selling a property and you're hearing somebody say, if you sell to them, you don't have to pay an agent fees. Are they an agent? Like, is that the question? And do you have somebody representing your needs? Have you had the property appraised? Have you gotten comps from a qualified agent to tell you this is probably what we think you can get for your property? And if you're selling it by yourself, which is something I will never do, the less a man makes declarative statements, the less apt he is to look foolish in retrospect. So I rarely make declarative statements. Thank you, Tarantino. Uh, but I'm always going to sell with an agent. And I've bought through agents. If I found a deal, I would take it to one of my agents. I'm not going to go to the listing agent. I want an agent on my side, not just because I think I need somebody on my corner who has a better grasp of things. I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm retired on rentals. I totally get how this works, but I want my agents to respect my loyalty and to bring me deals in the future. I have an agent that has several auto searches set up for me, but every now and then he'll reach out and say, this one checks off all these boxes. Have you seen it? Make sure it hits your radar. I want them to do that. Kind of like when I find my handyman and contractors, which is what it makes it easier for me to self-manage, is having good qualified handyman and contractors to help me with problems at my rentals, right? So that I don't have to go do that. Hire somebody off the Thumbtack app, have them do something small, something easy, see how their interaction with the tenant goes, compare their price, their communication style. Hire them for the easy jobs so they're more likely to do the hard jobs when you need them to. Howdy, John. Luke, how can I automate my tenant paying their electric bill, water bill? Should I have an allowance that is included in the rent? It's a good question. So there's a couple different versions of this. Whenever possible, utilities should be in the tenant's name. I clarified it with whenever possible because it's not always. There are some municipalities who will only put the water in the property owner's name. So you have to know your local laws. There are some states that don't let you charge a penny more than what the water or electric is. So what you do then is you go to invoicehome.com and you create a free invoice. And they're free as long as you don't go over a certain amount collected in a month. There might be a fee eventually. I haven't hit it because I only use it for a couple of things. So you're going to be a month behind. You get the bill from electric or water. You take the exact amount, transfer it over to invoicehome.com, and you create an invoice, send it to the tenant with the rent, and then next month they add that amount to the rent. You put it in the lease that's how it's done. What I've done with mine, because we're allowed to in Washington, is I don't want to say flatline because that's like unaliving, but I've made it static to where every month tenants pay a little bit more than what the monthly average is throughout the year, so that in the summer, when I have a couple spiky months with water, the little bit extra in the winter kind of balances that out, so it's not been an issue. So I just have in the lease, your rent is this much, tenant will pay $65 for water or sewer or whatever it is for that property. So I have a set amount. But understand that when you have water spike, that's going to be a U bill. Kind of like when you have a pipe break underground and it takes your guys a few days to find it, you pay the water bill. That shouldn't be a tenant problem when your pipe breaks outside when it's not something caused by the tenant. So I do the allowance included with the rent. I also do the back date a month, depending on whether it's gas, electric, power. Well, they allow you to put it in the tenant's names whenever possible. Now, if you do rent by the room, it's probably harder to put it in the tenant's names, and it's probably harder to get tenants to want to pay a fair amount because they are not controlling when their cohabitants have the heater on in their room or have a, what do you call it? Bitcoin mining system set up. Dividend Dave, howdy. Good to see you here. Last one, and you can ask more later too. It's fine. If rents are 800 and market rent is 1100, in your experience, do most inherited tenants get bumped up to market rent on the next lease with the binder method? It's a great question. Binder method doesn't really take you to market rents. To get market rents, what you need is the tenants to move out and you to spend a bunch of money. Flooring, paint, swap out electric, swap out lights. trim, whatever you're going to have to do, you're going to spend thousands of dollars on a tenant turnover. So if you want market rents, what most landlords do is they kick the tenants out, spend 5 to 10 grand, get market rents. It's a good return on your money. You just are a horrible human being. So what I want is to not displace my tenants, not spend a bunch of money. So I do the binder strategy 2 months after closing, if they're on month to month, or 2 months before their lease ends, if they are on a longer lease. And you get up to within 10, maybe 5% of market rent. So if they're 800 going to 11, you're going to go to 1,000, 1,050. You're probably going to stay probably below 1,050, maybe 1,000 is probably going to go to 950 to 1,000, easy. A little bit over 1,000 possible, but not to market if market's 1,100. So good question, but hopefully that was a clarification, because binder strategy doesn't get you to market rents. If you want market rents, you're going to kick the tenant out. You're going to do the upgrades. You're going to do the rehab. I did have one tenant asked to go to market rents, and I asked her, who taught you how to negotiate, and brought her way down from that. Wayne Wong. Howdy, Wayne. Good to see you. Brian, howdy. How much down payment have you invested in your rentals? I know this number because I was going to make this video. And I actually want to, I think I have this data because I wanted to talk about this with Zuber this week when he asks the question that he's asking all of his millionaire guests. And see if my friend John watched the intro and texted me. He did not. So he must not have watched the intro. Or Amber, whichever one was my friend. Who knows? Nobody will ever know. These made up names, if they're real. From my W-2 income, I've invested $320,000 over the period of a decade. This is before I retired. From rental income, I've invested about $300,000. So the difference is, so if I invested in stocks, I would not have had $320,000 to invest. Because 2 years into saving, I purchased a house hack, which lowered my living expenses, giving me $1,200 more a month to invest, giving me a lot more money to invest in real estate over time. So that's the amount of money that I've invested, so that I can actually calculate the return. So $620,000 invested from me and rentals. Profit $235,000 last year. What's the return on that? 30%-ish, 30-something percent. And that doesn't count appreciation. This is where it gets stupid. So every month there's principal pay down, right? There's like a savings account that grows without me actively contributing anything to it. Appreciation. So I've invested 620 net worth. Now I want to make this video too. There's a mistake that people make when they do their net worth. People say assets minus liabilities. Okay. Say you have $1 million in stocks. Now sell them all because you want the cash. That's net worth. What is it worth in cash? Okay. How many transactions occurred to sell the $1 million in stock? You don't have one stock worth $1 million. You don't have one index. You have a diversified stock portfolio. So you sell $1 million in stocks. You got all the transaction fees. I have no idea what that would be. Ask Joe Kuhn because he would know. Kuhn. You're on YouTube. He would know. Then, if you've owned them less than a year, you got to pay income tax from, increase from your basis. If you've owned them more than a year, you got to pay capital gains tax. What's left after transaction cost and taxes is your net worth. It's not asset minus liability. So I own real estate, I don't own any stocks. So I sounded like I was an idiot a second ago when I was talking about them. So don't listen to me for stock advice. It's a little over $6 million in gross value. I owe a little under $1.8 million in debt. So you take that out. Then I'd have about an 8% agent fee, probably concessions to fix things if the sellers, if the buyers ask for. I'd have money left. I'd have to pay taxes because this is all capital gains. I'd have to pay depreciation recapture. So I have a net worth of a little over $3 million. So over $6 million in real estate quickly becomes half for net worth. It's not assets minus liabilities, because that would give me a little over 6 minus 1.8. People would go, oh, you've got it. $4.2 million and blah, blah, blah. No, it's going to cost me to sell the crap. It's going to have tax obligation. That's why people get confused with net worth, because it's literally, with me, it's $1 million or more off of what assets minus liabilities would be. I don't know. That's worth a whole 10-minute video though. Maybe I'll make a short one. Probably have to whiteboard that. Evan, howdy. Good to see you. If you had to buy a small multifamily in Snohomish County, which part would you buy it in? I would first check that Marysville is in Snohomish and confirm that because I like the town of Marysville. Snohomish County, it would be actually, honestly, don't know. It's not my market. It's far enough outside of King County, close enough for commuters that I would consider Snohomish. So it passes the test for that. All in the south of Seattle, King County. I'm south in Pierce, Thurston, and Mason and Kitsap counties. I would have considered Snohomish. The reason I didn't is I self-managed and I went out of my properties within an hour drive. So my two farthest ones away now are hour and a half. In the United States, we judge distance by time, not in miles or kilometers. Giraffes. How many giraffes? Distance is it from here to there? So I would. So I haven't looked into Snohomish because, well, that might be close enough to where I could get there in an hour. Seattle's in the middle, so it's about a 4-day commute to get from the south of Seattle to the north of Seattle. So I would do a bit of research. Economic drivers, where are they located? How far are you from the Everett Navy base? I-5 corridor is probably good. Highway 2. What's that? Lake Stevens? I forget. There's some towns there. There's a lot of areas up there that would work for me. I mean, yeah. Again, where's your trusted boots on the ground? Are you going to self-manage? Or are you going to have a property manager? That can help determine it. What is your strategy? Are you looking for long-term, mid-term, right? If you're going to go short-term, I'd be something more along the water, or in the mountains, than in just the suburban areas. It would take me, let's say hypothetically, Evan, sorry, I wanted to invest in Snohomish. I was just going to move there, sell my stuff and buy there. I'd study the market for 6 months. I'd reach out to property managers and I would say, I'm looking at buying rentals in Snohomish. What areas would you not manage? I would call the non-emergency police number. And I would say, and this is the difference. So for property managers, I'm looking at owning. You want to be somebody that they can potentially make money from in the future. If you call law enforcement, they don't like landlords because tenants tend to be your biggest problems. They want people who are going to live there. So I say, I'm thinking of moving to Snohomish. Where would be a safe place? Where's the place where, maybe where's the bad places? Cops can't go alone, or you serve your most warrants, or whatever it is. So I know that in my market. I know anything close to McKinley Avenue in Tacoma and anything close to 301 T Street in Tumwater. I just don't go within a mile of that, basically, because I'm right at a mile from that. And then I would reach out to local Facebook groups, local investor meetups, like WARI, and look for the meetups there, and meet the other local investors to find out, study the market, and then, because it goes right, first you got to know the math, but after math, it's in your market, what's the good and bad areas, then do the properties match your strategy, and what is your strategy, and then who is doing it there successfully, and learn from them. So there's like a long process, probably 6 months before I'd be making offers on properties there. That is a good question. Brian, howdy. And sorry, Evan, it seems like I should know because I live in Washington, but no. Real estate is local. I invest in Pierce and Thurston and Kitsap, and there's probably 80% of Kitsap I don't know well enough to invest there. Like I studied a small portion of it because it's a new market for me. And it was months of study before I started making offers. Brian, I am averaging 50,000 a door and 300 net income a door a month. To go get 10,000 a month, I would need to invest 1 million. I'm averaging 50,000 a door and 300 net income a door a month. So to get 10,000, I would need to invest 1 million. So it would be great if there was just a simple math thing to go, if you want $10,000 a year and you can get a 10% return, you invest $100,000, right? That 10% of $100,000 is $10,000 per year. So if you want $10,000 a month, you would need $120,000 a year. So a 10% return would mean $1.2 million invested, but that's not how it works. I'm getting $235,000 a year with 620,000 invested, only 320 from my W-2 job. So here's why. If you just went out and took $1 million and bought a bunch of properties, let's say you took $620,000 and bought exactly my portfolio with exactly the same number of doors and exactly the same towns, you would make a fraction of what I do. I'm saying if you took the exact amount of money and got the exact same portfolio that I have, you would make a fraction of the money that I do. Here's why. I owned a house when I started, moved into an apartment and rented it out. Lost money the first year, made a very little money the second year. I got 2 years with that house. Then I house hack a duplex for 2 years. So now I've had the house for 4 years, duplex for 2 years, bought another duplex. A year and a half later, buy another duplex. Got a house for 5.5 years, a duplex for 2.5 years, and a duplex for a year and a half, right? So by the time I got to the 10 years, I've had the house the whole time, a duplex for 8 years, a duplex for 6 years, a duplex for 4.5 years, right? It's that time that turns the 10% into a 24%, right? I did the math at the beginning of this. Made $24,000 last year, $100,000 invested. 3 years after owning a property, I'm making 24% return. How's that? In 2021, I bought the property. In 2031, that's going to be like a 35% return on my money. I invested the same $100,000, but now it's going to be making $40,000 a year. So it's a good question. How much do I need to invest to kind of hypothetically do that? But add the element of time. And then you have to think of these two things tell you when to buy. It's not the market. It's not rents. It's not rates. It's not recession, depression, boom, bull, bear. None of that matters. They're all contributing factors, but they don't tell you when to buy. The first thing, Brian, when you go to buy is not how much do I need to invest to retire? It's, are you ready to invest? Have you studied the market like I talked with Evan enough to know what is a good deal and what areas to avoid? Does it match your strategy? Do you have the down payment, closing costs, money for immediate repairs, and reserves that lenders are going to require? Do you have all that? So you're ready. And nothing is going on in your life, right? You don't have a birth, death, divorce, those things that can take away your attention. So you're ready to buy. And the second thing is, did you find a great deal? And an example is in 2020, I bought a fourplex and then I bought a triplex. I emptied out my retirement accounts, bought a triplex, and all of a sudden had all the cash flow from rentals. I was financially free. I was still working and making good money. So money started to pile up and I started having more and more and more money for a down payment. And I started making videos saying, I specifically want to buy a fourplex that costs a minimum of $1 million. I didn't want to go, I want to go out and find a cheap property. I was confident in my ability to get a 10% return. I wanted to invest at least $250,000 because I make one transaction and increase my income by $25,000 a year. So I want to buy a fourplex. And I hunted and I hunted. And while I was hunting in 2021, that duplex popped up. And I thought, I want to buy it. So I purchased it. And then in 2023, while I'm still looking for a fourplex, a couple of duplexes popped up in the new markets I was looking at, and I made offers on them and bought one of them. So I'm thinking next year I'm probably still going to buy a fourplex. And I have to decide if I want to keep or sell my Burr project. It's great when life has options. I'm probably going to use my VA loan for the first time and buy a fourplex next year. Uh, we'll see. So, are you ready? Did you find a great deal? And that great deal might not be the exact thing you're looking for, but it might just be a great deal that you have the skill set to buy. So don't pass it up. Rob, how now, brown cow? Brown chicken, brown cow? Late start wealth. Howdy. Everyone here for the algorithm. I appreciate it. We'll have to listen tomorrow. I sound better in Futureland. So I'll be hungover, not drunk. Buzz Tune. Howdy. Any side conversations from the weekend event or recap that were highlights for you? Yes. Somebody brought this Tennessee whiskey that I want to find. I don't know where the heck it's at. I'm not a whiskey guy. Can't stand whiskey. OD'd on it when I was 12. So whiskey, rum, it's off for me. But somebody brought some, and I don't know where to find it. That was a highlight from the side conversation. I always like going to those events for the conversations to see how many people are starting in real estate. believe I'm a living, breathing example of the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? There's been several times in my life where I learn enough about something to where I think I can do it just enough to really hurt myself. Everything from trampoline, horses, dating, investing, doesn't matter. So getting around people to have the conversation to realize what it's like to not know something and to see somebody realizing, right? Because there were people at that event I could see who thought door count mattered, who thought cash flow per door mattered, and bringing them along to that doesn't tell you if it's a good deal or not, but they'd been using that metric for a while to going over yield and finding out that, well, that does tell you if the math is good or bad, doesn't tell you if it's a good deal or not. There's the next step. There's the next level that I don't know yet. So I want to be surrounded by guys like Cody, Christian, Caleb, Mike, Zuber, Matt, the guys who just have conversations. Like Zuber's asking all of his guests this entire week. So Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time. If you haven't checked it out, it's a good book, good community. It's right here on YouTube. But he gets all his guys together and girls together as investors, as millionaires, which is a weird thing to say because I still see myself as poorer than all of my tenants. Uh, this week he's asking all of us, and I feel like I'm cheating because normally when I go on to do the Three Amigos with him, so tomorrow morning we'll be recording that. Normally it's Mike goes, here's the question, record. I'm like, oh, okay. Top of mind awareness, how would I answer this question? So it's usually kind of sprung on us last minute. But this week, because I watched the daily update, he said, I'm asking all my guests this question. He's saying, how much value would your properties have to go up for you to just say, I'm going to sell it and walk away with the money? Right? Because everything has a price. If we say, I would never do that. Well, here's the price. And okay, how's that very inappropriate joke go? Would you sleep with me for $1 million? Sure. Okay. How about $50? What do you think I am? We've determined that. Now we're negotiating. Everything has a price, right? So he's talking about, but that made me start thinking, like if I wasn't around Zuber and he wasn't asking the question that I'm going to have to answer on video, how much money would it take for you to sell all your real estate? My actual answer is that it's not money, but there is a thing that can happen to let me sell all my real estate. I wouldn't even have those thoughts. And so, Mikey, when you go to those events, listen to all of the conversations that everyone else is happening because I am financially free. I am retired. I can do whatever I want. I've probably learned 1% of what I need to, but that's how much ahead of me there is to learn. And that's why I want to be around people like that. I don't know that it's always going to be about investing that I'm learning. It could be what's next after money doesn't matter because it's that quote, when you don't have enough, it's the only thing. But once you have enough, money's just a thing. Luke, Mike was really opening up in the chat during the Robin Hood Village event. Yeah, he was. I have to reach out and ask how his proposal went. It was, yeah, never hand me your phone. First thing, he should look through his photos because don't show them to anybody else. Nobody else wants it. Brian, howdy. How come you don't move to Thailand? Why come back to the USA? I would say quality of life for you would be better. So I have 3 kids. They're adults. They live here. All my friends and family are here. If I had to retire on a very low fixed income, $2,000, $3,000 a month, I would absolutely just move to Thailand, right? But with 21,000 a month coming in, I spend around five trying to spend money. In some months, I succeed at spending lots of money. I don't need to go to a lower cost of living area, and too many passport bro jokes coming in there. Um, I do love Thailand. The scuba diving is amazing. Can't wait to go back. Uh, Maybe in the future at some point that might be a thing. I don't know. I have this weird thing, national pride, right? Join the Marines, defend the country. Love to travel the world, love to enjoy the world, but I love the United States. What can I say? No matter how much half of the people living here hate it. Julie, howdy. Speaking of people who love the USA, Because your very favorite Dion Talks. Thank you. Appreciate that. Nice. I would really wish I could help my friends better. Rob, during the Vegas event, someone needs to record Mike's girlfriend expression when Mike takes the stage. Apparently, she doesn't know it's gonna. That's a great idea. How can I clandestinely do that? That is a great idea. I love it. Ivan, howdy. Going to rent by the room and want to put wall-mounted AC units. Do you have any brands model recommendations? Wall-mounted AC units. I wish I could help. I want to say, who would I refer you to? So I grew up in the desert and I'm used to swamp coolers. My brother's in California repairing swamp coolers today. So it's not like, hey, in the 90s we were dinosaurs. No, he's got swamp coolers on his stuff today. In Washington, I have an AC unit, a portable window, you just the hose in the window kind of thing. I used it twice this entire year, 2024. So it's not something I'm familiar with. Wall mini splits that do heat and cold, I would probably do that. They're very expensive. So in Washington, what I like to do is cadet heaters, baseboard heaters. I don't like HVAC systems. I don't like mini splits. I know that some requirements are coming out, and every contractor says, "Oh, you can't do that. You have to do this." And I'm like, "Yeah, you have to do that." My bike can go out there and stick in a wall heater. Um, so no, I don't have any good recommendations for that. Zuber's investing in Vegas. I don't know that he owns rentals there yet. Uh, I don't know who said. I don't know. I don't have a desert investor, I guess. Interesting. So no, don't have any brands recommendation. I would probably ask the lumberjack landlord. He does his live streams Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. He tends to know the name brands and models of all kinds of stuff. And while I know he's in Boston and it gets cold there, I'm sure they have 4 seasons. Meowdy, Ivan, Wayne. Do you mean mini splits? Yes. Mini splits are the like expensive things that goes in the walls. Not something that I would generally do because it's not needed in Washington. Well, I met somebody at the Robin Hood event. That's what he puts in. So of course he wants me to say how great they are. I'm sure they're great if that's what you need. Oculus. Howdy. Tenant wanted to give me late rent bread for Thanksgiving, but it was kind of humbly. From me? Nice. Freedom Works. Howdy. Good to see you here. Ryan, nice to see you made it. We can start now. Somebody earlier said to wait for you. Nice. Dave K. Howdy. What is your preferred way to find city landlord laws? How have I found them? So I watch the legislative updates. I check because it kind of almost doesn't matter what laws are in effect. You're going to hear from those from other investors. You're going to see that in most leases. When you talk to your attorney and you say, what would you like added to this lease? They'll point out something if it's missing. But I like to know what's coming up next year. I like to see what's coming up in session. I kind of learned this running the CDL school. There were always Department of Licensing laws, FMCSA regulations changes, things that were coming up that were going to committee. So you can go and testify for or against if you wanted to, or how the politics works here. It was way worse than that. Look through the legislative in your county when they go into session in Washington. I think it's like February or something. The weeks that they're in session, and look through just the bills, at least the titles of all the bills that are being proposed. Maybe not everything that's presented to committee, but the bills that come out of committee, definitely know what those are. So you'll know what's coming down the line. That to me has mattered more. But knowing local investors watching thousands of hours of BiggerPockets, one rental at a time, the entire community of hearing other people talk, just little weird random things that you'll learn. The more you're exposed to it, the more it becomes second nature. Does this fit real estate? So when I ran the CDL school, every employee was allowed to basically do anything they wanted to, as long as they could tell me the reason, like have a story as to how it benefited the company. So there's no micromanagement, but there was like a rearview mirror. Why did you do that? So in real estate, always be able to defend yourself from an ethical position. Why did you evict the tenant? Why did you take so long to get a repair done? Why did you anything like that? Have it if you don't have a reason, then you should have got it sooner, or you shouldn't have evicted them, right? I guess that's the most important thing is always think if I had to explain what I'm doing to somebody, how would this look legally? All nighter higher, even if Bitcoin node takes juice, but it can be ran intermittently. Yeah, it does take juice. There you go. Michelle, howdy. Could you remind me what the military rental department is? I'm not sure if I am wording this correctly. Basic allowance for housing. There's two things you might be asking. So the first one is basic allowance for housing. You can Google that, and it's based on the installation that you're at. So it's different all over the country. They do some weird, bad study to say what rents are, and they say that, and then it's based on rank. I usually use E5 as the kind of determining factor of rents, right? Okay, so it's a weird military thing. E4 and under, so newer people are often in training or new to a base, and they are not as often off post. And when they are off post, they'll usually go to apartment complexes. Sometimes they get stationed somewhere they're not even allowed to have a car yet, right? So it's about E4, E5 can generally be off base more. And so that's going to kind of set your area average rents for a basic allowance for housing. Now, if you're looking for, I want to list a rental, but I want to get a military tenant. And so the idea here, and I'm going to say more than you need to hear, Michelle, because you know this, but some other people, this might be the first time they hear it. One of the diversification strategies I do is I have about one third military, one third Section 8, and one third working or retired. So it would be illegal to run an ad saying, no military, no Section 8, or Section 8 only, military only, right? So I don't do that, but you can control where you advertise. So if the other way you're asking the question is the military rental department is I want to list a rental with the base, how do you do it? And I'm going to say it in a generic way because not everybody is by JBLM like your rentals are. Contact the base closest to you. So whether it's Everett Naval Base, right? Uh, the one in El Paso, the one or just wherever you're at. Ask for, Google M like Mary, WR, MWR, morale, welfare, recreation. They don't handle the rentals on any military installation that I've ever been to, but they'll know who does. Now, every installation has an MWR, at least every one I ever went to. And so you can contact them and say, hey, on this base. So if you reach out to JBLM, MWR, and say, who handles the housing for JBLM or posting rentals, they'll tell you. So then you make your ad like you would for anybody, send them a link. Oculus. I think you accept Venmo for rent. I do. Is it hard to get the rent out of Venmo to your bank account? And do they charge a fee? It is kindergarten simple. It's a Venmo, Cash App, Apple Pay, they're all the same. The money gets on the platform. The transfer is basically instantaneous on the platform. To get it from Venmo, Apple Pay, Cash App, Chime, Stripe, whatever, to your bank, you have two options. One is instant, and it'll be like a percent fee up to $10 or $15 or whatever. So there's a fee to transfer it instantly. So tenant sends it to you, it's yours on your account. If you want it in your bank, you pay a fee. Or if you don't need the money immediately, which I've never done, I've never needed it immediately, you transfer it in 2 to 3 business days, and it's usually within a day and a half. They don't want it to be too fast because they want people to pay for the fee, and it doesn't take too long. They'll transfer it to your account, no fee. Now, some of the apps like PayPal or whatever, if the tenant puts it under purchase, not friends and family, the platform might try to charge a fee. So I think Google Pay was one we started moving away because it was harder and harder to get the transaction to happen without a fee. It was one of them, I forget. So make sure no fees happen. That's what I do. So, yep, instant would be a little bit of a fee, 2 or 3 days, no fee. Julie. I have a duplex in Marysville and it's booming here. Yeah, I love Marysville. It's the first town I came to when I came to Washington. I was 15 and a half, and my sister and brother-in-law were moving to Washington from California, and I helped drive a vehicle up here for them, mostly legally. And they were thinking of moving to Marysville. They ended up moving to Yelm, Washington. I don't know why. And that would be the sister that I've talked to 2004 was last time. Yeah. She does live 800 feet from David, who I see every week. Hey, Chester on Chipmunk Mode. Good to see you here. Shell. Prices are higher in Snohomish County, and honestly, rents aren't too much more than rents south. Good to know. I would say what part of Snohomish? Yeah, Marysville, I could see prices being high, but I can also see rents starting to catch up. Vox, howdy. Is there any advice you have for investing in Indianapolis if you're familiar with that location? So anytime somebody asks me a market outside of my own, I have basically the same advice I talked about when I was asked about Snohomish a little bit ago. What is your trusted boots on the ground? So I'm one of the teaching assistants for the BiggerPockets boot camps, right? And in that, one of the biggest things that they go over training, and I won't go into detail because it's like it's behind an NDA, I'm sure, unless you're in the course, is how to pick a market or what matters in a market. And no matter how they structure that, to me, it never changes. That I would invest in a bad market over a good market if I had trusted boots on the ground in the bad market. That's not how I've heard it from BiggerPockets. That's how I do it. So there are parts of Washington, there are parts of other states where the return is much better than it is in Washington State. But I chose Washington State because I'm trusted boots on the ground here. Do you live in the area? Did you used to live in the area? Do you have a friend or family member that's close, like you have enough trust to, or you think they're going to come to your funeral that that works in the industry? So contractor, agent, lender, investor, something like that. That's boots on the ground. If not, you need to develop that. Then when it comes to the area, so in our members only meetings that we do twice a month, so there probably, I don't know if there'll be one next weekend, might be the weekend after. I forget. I think it's going to be this coming weekend. We'll do the email thing again. Uh, we look at deals. And so sometimes we look at a deal in a market I don't know anything about. So we literally break down. First, we do what everybody does. We look at the math. Here's how the math works. And then you realize that's this much of if it's a good deal or not. Then we look at the area. And if it comes down to looking at the area, we look at how many economic drivers are there. What is the closest major work hub? What is the commuting like to that? Uh, I don't go to like Crime Stop or those crime websites because it's usually cooked data, depending on whether the chief is trying to show crime is up, so we need more money, or crime is down, please re-elect the mayor. None of the data that I'm going to use. But you can ask property managers places to avoid, call the non-emergency police number, ask for places to avoid, right? There's all these ways to learn a market before you invest in it. So I would do all of that for months to learn what area average rents are, what area average prices are, what you can get for a yield. Most deals are going to lose money or they would have already sold. But of the ones that do make money, what seems to be average, look for deals that beat that. And then I would study insurance laws. Like if you're in Florida, flood insurance can make or break a deal in that state. What is it? Is it earthquake insurance? Is it wildfire flood? Whatever it is, you don't know about that market. Ask other investors, how does the insurance work here? What seems to be the biggest trip thing that people trip on? Uh, get to know other local investors, find out what they're doing, what's working for them. There's a lot of investing groups online that can help you with that. So I don't know enough about Indianapolis to tell you yes or no. I don't know enough about Snohomish, which is like an hour and a half from me to tell anybody if that's a good or a bad deal. But I know how to study a market, and I would go through all of that before I started moving money from the bank into properties. Thank you for that question. That was a good one. Michelle. And since I'm in a lot of groups in the area, I see tenants complaining about rents. That will never stop. Section 8 tenants, where the rent is completely covered by the government, will complain about something. I joined a lot of Tacoma groups. I don't see as much complaining in those groups. Nice. Interesting. Do you do like secret shopper? Do you join as a renter? Say those evil landlords. How can we beat them? Julie, give him my number. I know it's Snohomish County. There you go. Email me. I'll connect you guys. Deconstructing dreams, a financial journey. Howdy. How is Reno? This time of year, it's usually pretty cold. PJF. Howdy. People are not swayed by data as much as they are swayed by emotion. That is very true. So what data impacts emotion? I love it. Old guy, REI, CMO. Your son took back a message to make me lose sleep forever and ever and won't know what was said. You're as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. There you go. Just have that as a ringtone. Oh yeah, ringtones. That's how I'm that old. Actually, I'm so old. I I I think I remember party line telephones, or I remember enough TVs that had party line telephones. I'm not sure. Chester, thanks for putting in that website. Appreciate it. There you go. Uh, Great video. Don't do something simply for the tax benefits. There you go. Let the tax tail wag the dog. Because there's tax benefits to being married. You see me doing that for the benefits? Manuel, howdy. Mitsubishi, the three diamond diamond. Angel, hola, ¿cómo está usted? If you sell your house, hack, where will you live? That is a great question. If I sold it, so the idea is if I own this until July, that'll be 2 years. So that will trigger the IRS 121 rule. So I can make up to $250,000 in pure profit and not pay any taxes on it. It's one of the contributing factors to maybe selling. Also, this is, I love the location. I love that I can walk to all of these, I want to call them restaurants, but they're bars. And that I can walk to the ferry to go to Seattle. Like, I love all the parts of the area. I just have, I don't like the Port Orchard city limits. I have too much problems with them. So I might sell for more reasons than math. I'm probably going to move to a purchase. I'd probably rent for 2 or 3 months, sell this place, and then rent while I found a place. Thurston County, north of Olympia, acreage along the water. It's like going to be my slow start criteria to get there. There you go. Mitsubishi mini split. Okay. That makes sense now. But Angel, that's what it's still going to be here in Washington. This is one of the only states where everything isn't trying to unalive you, right? Uh, the summers here are beautiful, and I could travel for the winter. It works for me. Jay Merrill. Howdy. Jay. Such an interesting initial. It almost sounds like John or Amber. Did you? I guess I'll hopefully you made comments if you watched the beginning of this video. Don't sell. Howdy. I use Daikin mini splits for my units in my California. They are more expensive than other brands, but worth it. So Daikin, okay, good. There's a recommendation. M70. Howdy. Mike here. Howdy, Mike. I'm retiring in 3 months at 54. Congratulations. So we're the same age. I'm so used to working. I do know how I'm going to make, I don't know how I'm going to make the adjustment and fill my time. Feel like the guy in Shawshank Redemption that needs to ask permission to be. There you go. That's why my brother said I could never join the military like you did. No, I can't have somebody tell me when to go to the bathroom. That's all the military is. You run around and hut, 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 and somebody tells you when to pee. Anyway, I will deconstruct my own segue. So you're 54, you're retiring. I don't know how I'm going to make the adjustment and fill my time. You are absolutely okay. The less a man makes declarative statements, the less apt he is to look foolish in retrospect. I'm going to make a declarative statement. In 5 months, so you're retiring in 3 months, in 2 more months after that, 5 months from now, you will wonder how you had time to work. You are trapped in a cage you can't even see. When you work and you think, when you have the thought, what would I do with my time if I didn't work? You don't realize how many amazing things there are to do on this planet. Not all of them cost money. All the things that you can do. Work is in the way right now because you go to work, you get off, you're working towards retirement, right? So I'm guessing it's not easy, but you're close at 54 if you're retiring. You've been doing hard work and dedication to get to the point where you're at. You're exhausted when you get off work. You can have a sit at a desk, you're not doing anything physical, you're mentally exhausted. You have a physical job, your body's falling apart. There's all kinds of ways where you are just wiped out. Then you have a weekend, whether it's middle of the week or on the weekend, however it lines up. Day to catch up on rest, day to get everything done you could get during the week. You don't have a day where you have so like you have like 5 hours a day every day, except for the weekends when but you're wiped out. Imagine having 15. You're like, oh, I don't know what I would do with my time. That even sounds worse. But you have 15 hours where you're not tired. You take out the Vegas trip in February. I haven't had an exhausted day in over 2 years. There, everything you've ever thought of doing, you can do and not be tired. You'll actually want to do it. You're in a great position. I love it. Bill, howdy. Ryan, Dion just described why defense attorneys are useless. If someone can't describe why they're conducting an action, then they have no business conducting that action. Experiments are different. Reminds me, I've got a Venmo transfer to push through. There you go. Yep. Attorneys have their uses. Ask my exes that lost the house and lost custody of the kids to me. I represented myself. And you tell me what's important. Angel R. Do you have any tips, rules to follow when house hacking next to tenants for the first chat mood? For the least headaches. So I've house hacked a duplex, a fourplex, and I'm in a duplex now. And I have to tell you, I think I see my tenants at my other properties more than I see the tenants at the houses that I live in. So there's different versions of house hack, right? So are you renting out rooms in your shared living space? That's a very different experience. I like to own units of a small multifamily or a house with an ADU where there's very little interaction with your tenants. Be respectful with your sound, right? Obviously, you're the landlord. So if you're playing loud music at 1 o'clock in the morning, or if you start laundry at 11 o'clock at night and it shakes the building, be aware of those kind of things. The least headaches. It just, I could say this on YouTube. When you screen for tenants, most of us have criteria. Some people check income. Some people check where they've worked. Some people say, what's your credit score? What's your criminal history? What's your eviction history, right? All of that matters. I do evictions and credit score. I don't check work. I don't check income. Don't care about that. But I also, one of my formats for showing a property is I do open house format. And I have everybody show up that could see it. It's like a 2 hour window. And yes, their credit score mattered, their evictions mattered. But when they come to tour the property, what's their communication style? How was it like between you and them in text and emails? Is it easy to understand? There can be a language barrier. I'm fine with that. Did they not make any sense? Were they rude? Did it take too long to get a response? Were they too demanding and you were responding? And then when they come, the reason I like open house is you have the opportunity to have a few tenants, applicants show up at the same time to look at the place. How do they interact with each other? Right? The best way to judge somebody's character is how do they treat somebody who can have no impact on them. So when you're house hacking, not in the written criteria and not ever communicated through a text or an email, maybe you consider how you interact with that person in person. That's what I would add to help reduce headaches. I don't think I've ever had a problem with a neighbor. No. Huh. I also suggest, since they're probably going to know you're the owner, that you have partners like I do. Like no one needs to know my partner's my kid's cat. And I'm going to run every big decision by my partner to make sure it's a good or a bad decision. So I don't have to be the one that says no. So I'm not the bad guy, but I checked with my partners and no, we're not going to put in all new windows downstairs when the ones that are in there are like 3 years old. Not that that was a very specific example. Gavin, last live I asked about when you would quit if you reached enough equity. Zuber cover it recently. Did I do that? I think maybe he's doing it. My number is when I can invest it in fixed income and save 200,000 a year. Crystal Skull, cheers. Oh, cheers. Zuber is asking all of his guests that how much would you quit? I'm making a video with him tomorrow morning to answer that question. and it isn't a dollar amount. Here's the cheat. It's inversely proportionate that I would be likely to sell if the value went up. So my answer is that the question is the antithesis to the reality. You think people go, how much value would your properties have to gain in order for you to sell? The more value they had, the less likely I would sell, because that means because properties don't change value. Property is worth the same amount that they've been for 150 years. The dollar keeps losing value. So it takes more currency to buy the properties. So the more the properties are worth, the less the dollar's worth. The more I would need the properties. I do have a thing that would make me sell, but it's not how much they're worth. So there's your teaser into how I'm going to answer that question. It's a great question because we all have a number of what would make you sell your properties. If I get a stupid offer, yeah, I'd go buy another property with the money. But if all of the properties gained value, then that's not an option because all properties gained value. It's a good question that makes you think. The Riley Oak, howdy. Thanks for doing these. How do you verify tenants are replacing filters and using lint screen if needed? Are you doing your maintenance checks annually? Will you see them? My handymen do maintenance checks when they go there for anything and they look for things they need to let me know. So yeah, they're at least annual that way. Most of my properties don't have filters. I only have two with an HVAC system. So those are the two that have to be checked at least once a year. I prefer baseboard heat and cadet heaters. Portable AC units are tenants' responsibility. So this is my market. It might be different in your market. So if you're in an area where it's more uh, regularly required, what I do at my properties with HVAC though is I go and I buy 4 filters, have them swapped out by a handyman when they're there for something, and they tenants are shown, here's how the filter comes out and goes in, here's where they're replaced. Should do this every quarter. Uh, and if they're not, the next time the handyman can tell me and I can send an email, but it's not going to do much. That's a good question. Financial firefighter, aloha Mark. And then JNYC took back something to make me lose sleep. Sip Lifestyle is here, and I think we're at the end of the questions. So this will be a quick night, unless any questions pop up. I will end with that sentence that you can irritate the left and the right by saying something that I actually believe. I'm going to say something I believe. And let's see how many people I irritate. Oculus, did you have some handyman turnover recently? How do you train them to look for things you want to know about that if they change? Good question. I did have some handyman turnover. One moved to, I believe, Tennessee, and one stopped being handyman after all my tenants said, that guy does pretty good work if he's sober or shows up. So I've had some handyman turnover, and I've got some ones now that are doing really good. I've got like 3 for sure that have communicated and have done at least minimum 3 jobs with me. One's done like 8 now. So you communicate with them. You first find out what is their preference that they like to do, what things do they not like to do, right? One of the ones that I don't have anymore was he would do flooring all day long, but he doesn't touch carpet. So he would do LVP, LVT. He's just not a carpet guy. So find out what they like to do, what they don't like to do, kind of go with that. Talk to them about the specific properties that they've been to more than what your other ones are like, and point out, just have conversations. Hey, when you go there for this, tell the tenant you need to check that the bathroom works. You have to flush the toilet. You have to make sure that it doesn't run a long time and everything. But here's the conversation. So for my properties that are on sewer, I don't care. My properties on septic, I want you to go into the bathroom and actually physically look. Are there boxes of flushable wipes there? Because flushable wipes don't work in a septic system. And there were. So I text the tenant later, just say, hey, just reminding you, if a plumber comes and there's ever a problem with the septic system and they find flushable wipes in there, these are the ones that we're seeing in your bathroom. You will be paying for the repair. And it starts off usually around $1,200, just so you're aware. And then I get people go, oh, no, we don't flush those. Of course. And now they're not going to. You're looking for anything leaning up against hot stuff. You're looking for banisters that are loose. You're looking for steps that are loose. You're looking for anything to be a safety concern. Just have the conversation with your handyman. And most of them will go, yeah, I totally understand. We do this every time. And I'll say, you're going to report to me and things that need work, and you're going to send me a picture because if you can, or a video, if we can document this, you'll probably be the one doing the work fixing it. And just clear communication seems to be the best that works for me. First time out, I don't generally have that conversation with handyman because I don't know them enough. But second or third interaction, when I know they get along with the tenants fine, and we've probably interacted a few times or at least had phone calls with each other, then I'll start adding those kind of things. Letting them know I want to develop a relationship that's ongoing with the handyman that lasts, especially since I travel so much. Ongoing future work. And the thing I think that helps handymen the best, agents, lenders, handymen, contractors, all these things. It's not tips. Tip every time, pretty much, right? Unless there's a problem. But it's referrals. How many investors do you know that you can send to that handyman or contractor or lender or agent? The more work you provide them, even if it isn't work you hire them for, the more likely they are to put you on the front burner when you have an issue. That's a good question. Laura, good evening, everyone. Here just to say hi, family time. I will watch in Futureland. Futureland will be amazing. Fatih, howdy. Good to see you here. Question: could you talk about how these trees on the property play into your buy box? How trees on the property, they do. They're absolutely in the buy box. My family did residential tree service and logging, so I'm kind of aware of the estimating. So I might have a little bit of a cheat there on knowing what work is going to need to be done, rough estimate of what it's going to cost. So depending on your area, like I know in that one area we were looking, you just had hurricanes and whatever go through and massive tree damage. Washington State just had a hurricane, tornado, whatever you want to call it, storm that went through and supposedly wiped out a bunch of trees. But I drove through three counties. All three counties, I saw one limb on the road and it was like 3 feet long. So it didn't hit anywhere near where I'm at. Tall trees, root systems, like find out where the water comes in and the sewer goes out, or where the septic system is, and think, where's a tree in relation to the root system to those pipes? When you have the home inspection, have your sewer scoped to look for roots. I personally am trying to think if I looked at properties and said, no, I don't want to own trees like that. I have purchased a property knowing I was going to take trees out. Just remove them. It's like, oh, don't remove a tree. We need the trees. 80% of our oxygen comes from the ocean, not the trees. And there are more trees in Washington State now than there was in 1960. So we're not worried about losing a few trees. Safety concern. I'll look at trees on a neighbor's yard. So I do have a house where the neighbors have big yards. Send them registered letters saying to my insurance and to them, both parties named, this is an image of your tree. I think it's a danger to my house. So if their tree falls and hits your house, it becomes a them insurance problem, not a you insurance problem. And I've had the neighbors top trees for that reason. So I do consider trees just as much as I consider parking, loud things, power lines. It's definitely a part of the buy box. Gavin, howdy. I need a way other than Thumbtack to find them. The app is empty here. Other investors, local Facebook groups, other investors is a good way. Sometimes Google plumbing repair or electric repair or drywall work and then skip the first 10 that show up, right? Those are generally the companies that pay for Google AdWords, geo arbitrage with Google searches and all that stuff. And you want to find the handyman and contractors after the first 10, call and get quotes on prices, call and get recommendations, referrals, call property management companies and ask them if they have a crew or who do they use. In case you were ever going to use them, you want to know who they use. And sometimes they also want to have more work for their guys if they don't have it. There's a ton of ways to do it. Thumbtack is just the one I've had the best luck with. I'm trying to think, how else would I find it? Word of mouth, but that's your other investors. Call contractors, so roofing companies, and say, hey, if I ever had you put on my roof, who would you recommend do the gutter work? They might recommend somebody local, right? So then you got your gutter cleaner, your gutter installer, your and like that. And yeah, trying to think of other ways I'd have to actually put some thought to maybe make a video on. Here's how I would find handyman and contractors. I didn't have Thumbtack because I've been doing that now for like 6 years. It's some people say Angie's List. I've never tried it, so I don't know if that works. Hemlane has, I guess this would be the other way I'd go. So I use Hemlane. I think I have 5 properties on it now. I'm about to have a sixth, uh, out of 18. So I don't have all my properties on it. I'm just slowly cycling them over as I have tenant turnover or acquire a property. Um, they have a 3-tiered system. So the first tier is what I use. It's the cheapest. It lets me collect rents, list a property, puts it on 30 platforms. I guess there's a cheaper one. There's a free one, but it has a very limited access just to show you what the platform does. But I use the cheaper one. Then there's a mid-grade that also has a version of Angie's List or a version of Thumbtack where they find handymen and contractors for you. And then the third one is the reason why I have Hemlane is because when I'm in Thailand, if I have a tenant turnover, I want to be able to send an agent out and sign a lease if it just lines up with the timing. So Hemlane might be another one to try. But if Thumbtack is empty in your area, it's possible Hemlane would be empty in your area. Ryan, tip from a contractor. It's easier for me to answer what trades I'm not comfortable with versus the trades I'm comfortable with. Smaller list that way. That's true. What do they not like to do? And folk fitness and finanzas. Sounds like Spanish. I don't know how you say in folk though. Hmm. I like great name. Nothing cash flows in California. I would call uh, as politely as possible. I call BS. You can buy in Fraser Park a $200,000 house that will rent for almost $2,000. It's almost the 1% rule. My niece just did it recently. So get out of LA, get out of San Francisco, and understand that California is the size of like 9 European countries. And you're thinking California is one place. My brother owns in Rosamond, California. Get out of LA. That's in Kern County. That's outside of Edwards Air Force Base. Uh, yeah, some houses aren't going to cash flow. I haven't seen a house in Washington State in over 10 years in any of the markets I invest that would have cash flow, but small multifamily does. So get into Kern County. Michael Zuber lived in Silicon Valley and invested in Fresno for decades to find his places. So 2.5 hours from where he lived. It's a big state, a lot of places to go, and nothing on the MLS should cash flow. Every deal I've purchased is from the MLS. They didn't cash flow. Everyone would look at them and go, that's a terrible deal. I would never buy it because they don't know the binder strategy. They don't know how to get rents just a below market average, area market rents without having to do a rehab, without having to spending more money, just by having a 10-minute conversation with the tenants. They didn't know to switch from being really fast to going, watching days on market and making low offers. So the idea that nothing cash flows is why not everybody's just buying everything, but there are deals that are working, that are cash flowing. It'll be on the MLS. It'll be on there longer than normal. So figure out how many days on market is average for your area, and then find the ones that are at least 3 times that and start making 80% offers, 60% offers. Ignore the list price. Find the thing that makes sense. Find the motivated sellers. And definitely get out of LA County. And yeah, San Diego's a rough area too. From what I hear, whatever county San Diego's in, it's not Orange. Orange is up by LA. But it's going to be small multifamily. It's going to be further out from any city where remote workers have moved to. So they've pushed up rents, but they haven't pushed up prices. I would say yeah, if you looked in my markets, nothing cash flows. But I could find a deal tomorrow that I would buy. So I'm not looking. I don't want to buy. I don't want to buy until after I sell this place. So I'll probably start looking 3 months before I sell this place. I know you were hoping that I would agree and say, yeah, California sucks. You should go at a distance like my friend Millennial Mike, who invests in Gary, Indiana and buys cash flowing things left and right. Frank, old guy REI, lives in California, buys at a distance. Totally fine. If I was, no insult to people who live there, if I was dumb enough to still live in California, because it's where I grew up, I would invest in California. So many people in Washington say it doesn't cash flow here. You can't buy anything. I'm going to buy out of state. I'm able to have only 8 properties, make hundreds of thousands in profit to retire on and never have to work again. Only 8 transactions to do that. Yeah, Took seven, took it 10 years. I did that one after I retired. Uh, so I'm not trying to sound upset. I just politely call BS. Yes, it sucks. It's not easy, or everyone would do it. But you could totally find cash flowing properties in California. All-nighter header. The best handyman don't advertise because we don't need to. I also get the best clients from referrals. That is accurate. Thank you, Fatih. Appreciate it. Oculus. A video on your channel on how to find good handyman that doesn't advertise. There you go. All-nighter header says it's Taco Tuesday. At least it's not MRE Tuesday, not for like another month. Gavin, I totally agree. I have been really happy with the two I have found that way. They have retired. Come on out. Swimming, you like there you go. Yeah. And the handyman don't generally last too long. All-nighter hider being a handyman is when you've gone to Alaska for fishing. So what do your people do when you're not there? You're starting your investing yourself too. So we should always be ready for what like tenant turnover. I call it handyman churn. They're going to retire. They're going to get a steady job. They're going to outgrow your price point. Right. I've had handymen that I help grow a business. I work them a bunch, I find them referrals, and all of a sudden they've got so much business they can double their prices and still have enough business. And I'm like, cool, I'm not paying that. But they're still out there working because they find people who do. Yeah, this is a win-win. True. Bakersfield is a good place to buy. Manuel, totally agree. I've had a lady on who lives in Bakersfield and invest out by Taft in that area. Yeah, get into Kern County. There's tons of places there that do make sense. And remember, in California, when people say, well, it doesn't cash flow and then there's rent control. No, there isn't rent control unless you put it in an LLC. Then it's rent controlled. Or you buy more than 4 units. Yeah. Word travels fast. I'm really digging my new toys. $1,100 buys, but they work well. Nice. The only realistic way I can see myself breaking into this San Diego market is with owner financing in terms that are asymmetric in my favor. How far out of San Diego? Because you got the weather tax there, right? You're paying for 75 degrees year round, basically. That's hard to incorporate into how much your property is going to make. But imagine the people who owned in San Diego that bought in 2001 or 2005 and paid $300,000 for a house that's worth 1.6 million now. People pretend, Ryan, like it's not going to be worth 4 million in 2040. Gavin, if you want to keep them from quitting the game early when they want to, insist on paying more per hour than they ask and then tip too. That's what I do. So I tip high. I usually ask for, their price and then I say, so what was the most recent one? I'm going to replace the ducting for the dryer, which was disconnected under the house. I'm going to replace it and there was a broken part. Redo a couple of things. It was like $150 or something. And I said, okay, if it's done by Friday, it's $300 plus a tip. If it's done after Friday, it's your price plus a tip. If it's done Monday or later, it's just your price. Like, break it down. You're having a conversation. Handymen are not like walking into a store when it says this is how much corporate says it costs. And always, Ryan might not want to hear this, always get 3 quotes. And here's the short version of why. So I'm the youngest of my brothers, and they all owned tree services, and my dad owned a tree service. I literally joined the Marine Corps because that would be easier. One of the things I would do when I was home on the weekends or just got out of the Marines, right? It was one of the cleaner cut of us. I was the estimator, line up work, go bid jobs. And it was literally, how many people is it going to take? What equipment is going to be required? How many hours is it going to take us? Do the math, double it for our retirement. All these ways to figure out how much it's going to cost. But here's the reality of estimates. Let's say you find a contractor and they give you a good price. They're a good contractor. So you want to use them every time. Well, maybe when you got the good price, they didn't have any work lined up next week and they want to eat. So you got a good price. The next time they come to do a job, maybe they have 2 months worth of work lined up. And if they want to do your job, they have to offset another customer, work overtime, or give up one of their days on the weekend. So the price goes up. So you get 3 quotes Find like I have my three handymen, right? I'm gonna get different quotes on everything. I've got a roofing guy that's done he's done three roofs for me, right? But he knows, Scott knows every time I do that, I'm gonna get two or three quotes on the roof. Yeah, you got the best price. But one time I'm gonna call him and all his guys are gonna be busy and his price is gonna have to adjust. And be like, oh, the other guys with the same material, same reputation, just had a better price. Never just get one quote on a price unless it's really simple and the price is, if it's replace the dryer duct and it's 150 bucks and yeah, sure, I'm not going to call for it. But if they came back with a $600 quote, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to call three people. You obviously are busy. Anna Kay, what did you say about neighbors' trees on a registered letter? Which name do you list? Insurance company. I just rewind twice and could not get. So let me slow down that because it could be important. So in 2006, before I was an investor and I just owned a house, I had a neighbor's tree fall over and hit my house. Broke some windows, broke a door. It's like $1,300 in damage. It's like almost nothing. But I was poor, broke, working in law enforcement, didn't have $1,300 sitting in the bank, but I did have homeowner's insurance, and I'm an idiot. I got my official 10 ID 10T tattoo. I reach out to the neighbor, and their insurance company calls me and says, a tree falling on your property is an act of God. If you thought the tree was a danger, you could have sent us a letter and we would have done something about it. Since you didn't, we're not covering any of it. So, like the moron that I am, I call my insurance company and they fix it. $1,300. I think it's great. My insurance tripled and no one else would insure me from 2006 to 2011. So now all my rentals have insurance policies with a $5,000 or a $10,000 deductible, and I will never use it unless it is burned down to the ground. And then I'm going to use it and understand that it was a major claim because $1,300 was no different claim than a $500,000 claim to the insurance company. No one else would insure me, and my rates almost tripled. So I don't want to use my own insurance, but there are some places where the trees aren't good. Now, knowing that the insurance company would have covered the damage had I sent them a letter that said this tree is a danger, maybe you can have an arborist give you a free estimate and say it's a danger. Send that with your registered letter to the property owner, right? And my insurance company. So my insurance company is named and the neighbor is named that they've received this letter stating, I believe this tree is a concern. So that if it ever falls and hits your house, you at least have a leg to stand on. Probably would come back to my homeowner's insurance anyway, because all of the gods hate me. But that's what I'm doing now. No matter working solo, I'm not putting in 320,000 a year like some. I'm planning on starting another business to increase my income, which is why it's my ability to invest. I forgot to mention with cash flow, to get a cash flowing property, I'm thinking asymmetric terms. There you go. Lumberjack landlord. I quit. I'm retiring again to be Dion's handyman. There you go. Come on. I got space for you. I always encourage my clients to get multiple quotes and share them with me so I know where my competition is. I did that too. So I actually had tree work done here, which was very entertaining to tell my brothers. I had a tree company come out here and do work for me because I'm not touching that stuff. Literally watching my brother go to my nephew's place the other day and do tree work. Like, nope. Got three quotes and showed him. Said, here's the written quote from the other guy. And no kidding. Um, I estimated that it would cost about $900. It was trim one tree, remove a dead one. The first dingus that I brought out here was like 4 grand. I was like, how'd you come up with that number? Is it you went to the thing and said, what's the I don't want to do it price? Oh, there it is. It's $4,000. One was like 1,200 bucks, and then the other one was 600 for the takedown, 200 for the trim, so $800. Good reputation, professional. Never hire a contractor, a handyman, a tree trimmer, a plumber, an electrician, a roofer, a drywall guy, or anybody that shows up with an iPad that talks about their warranty for more than 10 seconds. Now, you'll pay 4 times what it's worth. You don't get a better warranty. You don't get better work. Enough said. So always get several quotes. I think the $4,000 guy reached out later and asked why he didn't get it. Like, uh, that's right, Matt. I still take the desirable jobs. There you go. Oculus. The problem I have with three quotes is that everyone wants a service fee to come estimate by the time I pay those fees. Yeah, I've never paid a service fee for a quote. Yep, that's why I go to Thumbtack and I will literally search through and it'll show you like the 5 or 6 options. I go to these are the people that charge a service fee. Nope. If it was something like an HVAC, and I know that they're going to come and it's a simple fix, and I'm probably just going to hire that company and I'm only going to get one quote, I'll pay a service fee because a lot of them is it's $100 or $150 service fee that's incorporated into the price if we do the job. I'm okay with that. But it's very rare for me to have a job where I go, this is going to be simple. One company's going to come. So I've had really bad luck with my HVAC companies. I had one guy come. How did it go? He came. I can't fix it. You have to replace this and this and this. It'll be $3,500. I said, okay, cool. I'm going to get a second quote. Guy comes out, plays with it for 5 minutes, says it's working. I don't need any money. Goes away. That company is getting called every time. They're literally on my phone is HVAC company use. Use means use them. Uh, yeah, use the Thumbtack app, use referrals, call and just say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. I need an estimate. If you can give me an estimate without a fee, I would use you. But if you need a fee, I'm going to go on to somebody else. Although Oculus, how far from civilization are you investing? Right? If it's an hour drive from the closest anything, service fees are going to be a part of the deal. All not ahead. I see the free quotes as part of the job, but then I don't advertise either, so I'm not running around doing, yep. So I'm looking for the people who are doing the free quotes. The person who needs paid to come and give you a quote knows their quote's going to be so high, they want to be compensated for their time if you don't hire them. Kind of like if I had a lender that said, oh, I wouldn't work with you if you got multiple quotes from other lenders. Oh, you don't like your product either. I'm going to be wrapping this up here in a few minutes so I can get ready for the course call that starts at 6 tonight. Don't sell. Howdy. You're right. It's difficult to cash flow California, LA County, unless you bought 10 years ago and sitting on 3% mortgage. I don't agree. I still think you could. My niece just purchased like a $200,000 house that would rent for almost $2,000 a month. It would cash flow. You just got to get out of LA. But it is hard. So don't sell. I'll agree with you. It is really hard because interest rates doubled or tripled, right? They're in the 7 range now. Rents haven't gone up enough to really justify and prices haven't come down. So it is harder to find. I had to go to new markets. You take the cities and you push out further, where I mentioned this briefly earlier, but I'm going to clarify now. About another 30 to 45 minutes farther out from the major city close to you, remote workers can move out of the city. Not everybody wants to live in the city, so they can live out there further and rent because you only have to go to the office once or twice a week. They can't buy because their boss might call them into the office full time next year. So home prices haven't pushed up further out. Rents have. Are you tracking what's going on with rents? I purchased a duplex out here that wouldn't have made sense, right? That the other unit in 2020 or 2021 would have rented for $1,200. I bought it in 2023, rented for 21.25, about $200 lower than it should be based on rent studies around here. But it's a house hack and I travel a lot. There was at the time when I bought it, the previous owner left a cat. So I inherited a cat. I'm not a pet guy. I had pets when my kids were young. Should have had them stuffed so they'd last longer. Maybe the pets, not the kids. And so the tenant was going to take care of the cat when I was gone. Now the tenant will like put in an Amazon package or tell me if there's a leak or whatever, so they get a little bit a better rate. Um, Probably going to binder strategy them next year. We'll see. Unless I sell. It's possible to find cash flowing deals. You have to change as the market does. It is not easy, or everyone would do it. Look at all the demand there is for investors. Look at all of the information on YouTube. Although we do thank the Crash Bros, because every time they make a video, we lose 2% of our competition. Gavin, howdy. Lumberjack landlord always welcome in frozen tundra of Wyoming. Might be a tropical getaway compared to up there. Totally agree. Right. I guess sub 2 may work also, or lease assignment. I guess I know for a few tools. There you go. So a Denny's metric, like don't invest farther than X from a Denny's. There is a 7-Eleven metric. Don't invest within 500 feet of a 7-Eleven. I have the metric if I don't want to invest in good school districts. I have the metric I don't want to invest in gated communities. I don't want to invest. Well, I don't do class A, class B, but that's kind of really vague. So yeah, there is a lot of metrics out there. But the Denny's metric, that's a good one. Is there somewhere that's not close to a Denny's? They're everywhere. Although, no, hey, I'm in a town that's pretty far from a Denny's. The closest one's like 20 minutes away. So it wasn't a metric for me here. There had to be several places I could walk to for food because I don't cook. I took an oath, never cook again. Dan Hawkins, howdy. When does it make sense to add an ADU to a property? That's a great question. I've never done it and I don't plan on doing it. Washington State recently passed a law that goes into effect this coming year, where it's illegal not to allow an ADU. But they delegitimized all single family house zoning. Cities will fight it somehow. Uh, I'm not a builder. I don't think there's any value in building. I don't want to own a house newer than 2000. They wouldn't cash flow. I don't even want to own a small multifamily in my area. I think I've offered on one that was made in 2002 and it got outbid because they don't make money. I got to find in my market, it's got to be older than 2000. I own two that were old, like 2021, 2039, and the rest are all between 80 and 2000. That's my sweet spot. I like that 20-year after the 79. So no lead paint, no asbestos, no deals like that. No, what do you call it? Knob and tube. Again, one with cast iron pipes. Uh, but I don't want newer. And if you build, yes, that ADU guy has a better channel. If you're going to build an ADU, he'll give you here's the metric I use to make sure it'll make sense. And you understand what your setback is, whether it can be in front or behind the property. So I don't want to build an ADU, but I would love to buy them. Actually, my best performing asset is a house with an ADU. Not sure which one's the ADU. There's a house and a duplex on one property. I believe the duplex is the house, and then later they added the other side of the duplex, and then later they added a garage that was then turned into a house. So it's like it was weird growing every 20, 30 years they did something on that property. But I only found it because I was searching for house with ADU. I don't like the bill. I'm never doing another burr. I don't like the permit process. I don't like going to the city and begging for permission to make them tax money in the future. Uh, it's just not I don't like when I say all my deals are from the MLS, all my deals except for one needed less than $1,000, maybe $2,000 in work. One needed a roof. I don't know if you count that as work because it was just get three estimates. But the rest, like, and that's even accounting the coded locks, the motion sensor LED lights. But I don't do rehabs. I buy rent ready or occupied properties from the MLS that cash flow day one, and they exist in every state. They're not easy to find. They're in California, they're in Washington. So I'm not an ADU builder. I've got one property where the city asked me to build an ADU. And I was like, I'm thinking about that. And then they said, yeah, all you have to do is cook up to city sewer. And that killed the deal. Connecting to city sewer would be $24,000. Maybe I do that and add an ADU because they got the cost of the ADU as well. Then I got a monthly sewer bill. I prefer septic all the time. And then the dingus city said, sure, if we put in your connection, you also have to run sewer past your property to the houses past you in case they want it, adding hundreds of thousands of dollars, making the ADU and connecting to sewer. Never going to happen. I will burn the place to the ground on purpose, not collect insurance, pay it off. I'd rather do that than do anything for that city. Lesson learned, don't buy inside city limits. That's why I'm thinking of selling this one. Regarding metrics, close to a quick trip, Costco, and bars with $20 cocktails are good ideas. Absolutely. I love it. I'm probably going to be wrapping this up. Let me look at the questions really quick here. Maybe worth it to invest in a Denny's franchise. I don't know if they're franchised or not. They are franchised, but restaurants generally have a 4% margin for profit. And ugh, no thanks. Nothing that has an inventory. Dan, when would it make sense to convert an external garage to ADU? One bedroom, Phoenix pays 1700, Section 8. Check with contractors in your area to see what the city is like to work with. Get an estimate. See if it converts. I mean, you're talking a garage, you need a wet wall, you need plumbing, you need power, you need insulation, all kinds of stuff. So what's the quote going to be to make it functional, and how will the city fight you on it? Okay. Last question from Dan. From anybody. Friend, when you rent ready cash flow, are you talking about using the binder strategy and raising rents to market value, raising the rents to 5 to 10% below market value rents without having to do a rehab? Yeah. So I don't use existing rents. There's a caveat, there's an exception. So generally they're month to month. Landlord hasn't thought of these tenants in 5, 10 years. They haven't done any repairs. So the tenants are used to being ignored. So their rents are low. So I buy binder strategy gets me to maybe 10% below market rents without having to do a lot of repairs. Fix some minor things, like I said, $1,000 or $2,000 the owners just have been ignoring. So I do that without having to do the rehab. There was a property, and I've done this on a couple properties because they had like 3 or 4 months remaining on their leases, but there was a property that went for sale. Price didn't really make sense. It was really close, but price didn't make sense. And then the seller was like, I really like my tenants. I don't want to screw them over. So he signed new leases. Area market rents should have been around 1,800 after the binder strategy, right? So rents would be above that. The binder would have got us to 1,800. He signed a 1 year lease at 15 and a 1 year lease at 1250. So it's a year with low rents. Kind of blew up the deal, but I looked and I thought, okay, so it's losing 300 here. It's losing basically 500 here. So $800 a month, 800 times 12, basically $9,600. So 10 grand is what I'm losing. So the 414 you want doesn't make sense. I offer 390. So I do this adjustment that makes it make sense to bring my metric back to where it made sense. And they accepted. I said, you want to protect your tenants? Great. But here's the math that makes it make sense to me. And then I got offered this place and took it instead. So have an evening full of amazing. I have several videos coming out this week. I was actually struggling on what to name this video tonight. What was some of my options that I wanted to name this tonight? Where did it go? Oh, Prager University did a study why the middle class won't become wealthy. I'm going to do a reaction video to that. Not, let me see. I want to do one on how the inventory being above where it is in 2019 doesn't mean we have a crash coming. I wanted to name this video, so this might be next Tuesday's, why I was able to retire with rentals. And then I want to talk about the decade of buying them. Yeah, so I've got a ton of videos I want to make, but I try to because I don't want to be the next Michael Zuber where you've got like 5 hours of content every day, pick through which you want. I just want to make one every 2 or 3 days and hopefully help you reach financial freedom and make work optional. So I'm going to end this video with the sentence: to irritate the left and the right at the same time by saying something I actually believe. There are exactly two genders and zero gods. See, piss off both sides that way. Ciao.